Oh, that's a wrap? Right. Anyways, wait, I got one for Snow. It ain't a wrap, dog. You relax. UFC motherfucker. What's up, Snow?
I gotta ask you this. You stopped the guy with the 8-fight win streak. Do you feel like Sean Strickland did enough to get the next title shot in the middleweight division?
Yes, I fucking did. I don't think this thing works. I'll stand up. Yes, Judge, enough. Listen, you don't want to see any of these motherfuckers fight that little Chechen war. You want to see the last fucking American in this sport going, fuck that guy up. And that's what's gonna happen.
What did Sean Strickland do to beat Khamzat Chimaev?
Anything I fucking want, dude. Anything I fucking want, dude. I'll bring a fucking go. You'll get distracted. Anything I fucking want. I feel like we need to bring the belt back to America. We need a real fucking American to represent this fucking organization.
So a fight with Khamzat at some point somewhere in the world over fighting at the White House?
Well, first of all, guys, I'm not leaving this country ever again. I'm an American. I'm not leaving, I'm not traveling, I'm not vacationing, I'm gonna die on this fucking soil. So it will be in America. Where the fuck that is, I'll be there. What do you want next, Sean? I don't know, man. If Chimaev probably gets off the bench, dude, I'd like a piece of that little Chechen whore. But you never know with him, bro. You never know that guy, but that's what I want. I kind of thought you start going a little wild. And like, no part of you slowing down, but to me, you're getting a little bit more sloppy. But like, no part of this man was slowing down. He was a fucking savage. Was OT 2 seconds left in. Oh, slip it up, win. Look, we just won 8 in a row. You stopped it. You're a former champion. What do you want next, Sean?
Sean Strickland just proved every expert wrong in the most brutal way possible. While everyone was obsessing over Anthony Hernandez's grappling stats and his nickname, Fluffy, they completely missed what was really happening behind the scenes.
Champ, Sean Strickland!
Here's what nobody saw coming. The atmosphere before this fight wasn't your typical UFC circus with fighters screaming at press conferences and throwing chairs. This was something completely different. This was two killers who knew exactly what they were walking into, and that made it 10 times more terrifying. Strickland had been grinding in complete silence, putting in work that would break most fighters, because he knew something the analysts didn't. He wasn't just preparing for another fight. He was preparing to expose the biggest myth in the middleweight division.
How do you know that about this guy? Like, when do you know that about a fight?
I mean, that's how he's made his career, just like laying on guys. You know, but it's hard. Like, he fought Roman Dolidze, and I mean, Roman Dolidze did his camp for us. He had his, like, again, talk about injuries. He hurt his back. He didn't even train really at all that fight camp. So, like, you know, Fluffy goes in there and mauls him, and everyone's like, oh shit. And you're like, me, has been in with Roman Dolidze for 10 weeks. I'm like, this guy didn't train at all. Like, he couldn't. His back was. But, you know, Roman had the idea that I'm just going to go in there, I got good jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to armbar somebody, and then lights come on, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So there is, like, it's kind of weird from insight, from knowing guys who fought, like Roman, where you're like, well, I know you felt like a badass, but, like, you should have seen what we've seen for the last 8 weeks. You would have been like.
And let me tell you something about the so-called experts who were picking Hernandez. They were looking at numbers on a screen instead of understanding what those numbers actually meant. Sure, Hernandez had this impressive record of suffocating opponents, but Strickland saw right through it. While everyone else was getting hypnotized by highlight reels, Strickland was doing real homework. He wasn't just watching Hernandez's wins. He was studying who Hernandez was beating and under what circumstances. And what he found changed everything.
That was a layup.
You still, how do you feel about going into those 4th and 5th rounds knowing that it's going to be miserable? You welcome that, or you just like,
yeah,
I'll do it, I have to do it?
Yeah,
but like,
I mean, I don't know anything else in 5 rounds. Like, you just train for that, you know? Like, you just, I mean, we did 5 rounds in here. I mean, you've seen 5 rounds in here, and then generally I tried. You're like Fluffy's a hard guy to train for because there's nobody that really fights like him. You know, that like has that pace. So a lot of my training is like my wrestling rounds are outside of sparring. I'll have go and I'll get guys. But I mean, you see me spar today, you know, you just like go with a guy until I become.
Here's where it gets absolutely wild. Strickland discovered that a lot of Hernandez's most impressive victories came against fighters who weren't even close to 100%. We're talking injured opponents, guys coming off terrible training camps, fighters who showed up to the cage already compromised. When you start peeling back the layers, Hernandez's suffocating dominance starts looking a lot less impressive. It's like being amazed that a lion can kill a wounded gazelle. Of course it can. But what happens when that gazelle is healthy and ready to fight back?
Biggest fight of your entire life?
I think that every fight's as big as you make it, and like, you know what I mean? I'm not where I want to be. I still want to be higher, so I'm still chasing dreams and goals. So like, I don't know. I just look at it like another fight. I'm gonna go out there to prove myself again and try to knock on that door for the title.
Yeah, clearly with every step you take this step forward. Does this fight, Anthony, does this take you to the doorstep of a title fight? Obviously something that you have badly wanted for a long time.
Man, I really hope so. But if not, I mean, there's only 2 more people in front of me to take out. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if I got to take every out, then I will. But, I mean, then there's going to be no one to clear out the division. So, I don't know. I just want the belt. I'll clear that.
But here's the kicker. While everyone was debating whether Strickland could handle Hernandez's pace, they completely missed that Strickland lives for exactly these kinds of wars. 5-round battles aren't some nightmare scenario for him. They're his comfort zone. This is a guy who's made a career out of breaking fighters in the championship rounds. When other guys are looking for a way out, Strickland is just getting started. And his preparation for Hernandez proved it.
See Sean as an opponent, obviously somebody who has won, massive fights, beaten the best of the best. He's been champion. Where do you see him? I mean, is he washed now? Is he still that same dangerous guy? What's this guy?
No, I think he's tough and he's really good. You know what I mean? He's beaten the fuck out of some great people, like you said, but all those people aren't me. So I'm looking to go in there and show what I can do against him.
Listen to what Strickland was doing in training camp. He wasn't just sparring with 1 or 2 guys and calling it a day. He was rotating through an endless stream of fresh training partners, pushing each one until they literally collapsed from exhaustion, then immediately tagging in the next victim. He was turning his gym into a torture chamber, and he was the only one walking out intact. That's not normal preparation. That's a man who knew he was about to enter hell and wanted to make sure he owned the place.
Now, let's have a look at some of the stats going into this one. The average fight length between the pair of these, Sean Strickland's average fight length, 16 minutes, Alexander Hernandez, 11 minutes, 20 seconds. Knockdown average per 15 minutes, 0.24 for Sean Strickland, 0.0 for Alexander Hernandez. So I think that points to the fact that Strickland hits harder. That's fair to say. Strikes landed per minute, Sean's the busier guy, 5.95 to 4.53 per minute for Hernandez. The striking accuracy, Hernandez is way more accurate. He lands at a 62.8% clip, whereas Sean Strickland lands 42.5%. Strikes absorbed per minute, Fluffy also has the better defense. He only gets hit 2.53 times per minute, where Strickland takes 4.57 shots. Striking defense 60% to 49% on Hernandez, and the striking differential plus 138 for Sean Strickland and plus 2.0. Now, when it comes to the grappling, the takedown average per 15 minutes, 6.5 takedowns in a 50.
Now here's what makes this even crazier. While Strickland was preparing for war, Hernandez was treating this like just another stepping stone. Don't get me wrong, Anthony wasn't taking it lightly, but he saw this as one more calculated move in his climb to the title. He wasn't viewing Strickland as some legendary former champion who'd proven himself against elite competition. He was seeing him as an obstacle to clear on his way to bigger things, and that mindset difference. That's what separates champions from contenders.
Whereas Sean Strickland, 0.73. The takedown accuracy, though, of Fluffy is only 48%. When Sean goes for a takedown, he's way more successful. He gets a takedown 64% of the time. That's because Fluffy goes for so many takedowns. The takedown defense, Sean is better there. He's got 76.2%, whereas 68.2% on the side of Fluffy Hernandez. And then finally, submission attempts throughout a 15-minute period, 1.8 for Fluffy. I thought that would have been higher. It certainly looks like it. And Sean Strickland.
The respect was there, sure. Hernandez acknowledged Strickland's accomplishments in interviews, said all the right things about facing a proven veteran. But there's a difference between respecting someone and truly understanding what you're up against. Hernandez kept talking about how this version of himself was different, how he was presenting a completely new challenge that Strickland had never faced. But here's the thing about experience. It teaches you that every young lion thinks they're special until they meet a real killer.
What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
I want to say 1 week ago we were at BI and we go to extreme sparrings and these guys meet Sean Strickland.
Oh! Hey!
How did you meet him?
Yeah.
We were sparring with Sean Strickland. He asked me and Baisangur. Baisangur went with him 3 rounds and he made him tired. And then he says, "Come on, you." And I went, take him down and submit him. Rear naked choke.
And get this, Michael Bisping breaks down the tail of the tape, and on paper it looked like Hernandez had all the advantages. Better grappling stats, higher takedown numbers, more submissions per fight. The betting odds reflected it. The media picked Hernandez. Even hardcore fans were convinced that Fluffy's wrestling would be too much for Strickland to handle. But numbers on paper don't account for heart, and they don't measure what happens when someone refuses to break.
If Hernandez does go through him, I don't just mean beat him, because Hernandez didn't say I'm going to go beat him. I'm going to beat him up. There's a big difference. I'm going to torture him. I'm going to make him pay. I'm going to out-grapple him. I'm going to outstrike him. I'm going to outpace him. What if Hernandez was to make Sean look bad? I mean, what would that mean? The stakes totally changed. Like this up-and-coming idea of Sean, which by the way, he's a bit of a veteran. He's a former world champion. That really knocks you down. Hard thing to come back from, as a matter of fact. I would go as far as to say that. And these are just the stakes. This doesn't put extra pressure on Sean. This is just a reality that I...
But wait, it gets worse for the Hernandez believers. Those grappling stats everyone was obsessing over. They were telling a completely different story if you knew how to read them. Yeah, Hernandez attempted more takedowns, but his success rate was only 48%. Meanwhile, Strickland was landing 64% of his takedown attempts. And defensively, Strickland was stopping over 76% of takedowns thrown at him. The guy everyone thought would get wrestled to death was actually the better wrestler when it mattered.
I think that Hernandez is going to have to be the guy that's going to have to go out and break the record and beat 11 straight. I just don't. So what do you do? No, what do you do? What would happen there? Because it doesn't hurt Hernandez that bad if he gets bumped by Sean, by the way. Hernandez is a young guy. He's got all sorts of paper behind him, and now he's in the main event. Like, Hernandez got a rocket ship tied to his ass. He's going to be a star. But Sean could really fall. And the way you look does matter. What the performance looked like, it does matter. Hernandez...
Here's where the story gets absolutely insane. Right before the fight, rumors started leaking from training camps about Strickland getting caught in submissions during sparring. Some 21-year-old supposedly choked him out during preparation. If you were Team Hernandez, that sounded like Christmas morning. Here's proof that the veteran was vulnerable, that his ground game had holes that could be exploited. But if you really understood Strickland, you'd know that getting tapped in the gym just makes him more dangerous in the fight.
Strickland, you know what he's going to come out and do. He's going to talk, say stupid stuff to fight weak, but he's going to throw out his jab. He's going to throw out that teep. I'm going to say over under 50 teep kicks for Strickland. Fluffy's shown that he has a weakness to the body. He's gotten hurt to the body a couple times. Kevin Holland finished him with a body shot. So for Strickland, you got to keep him at that jab length. He does a lot of walking forward. I don't think that's going to help him in this fight because moving forward on a guy that wants to shoot on you and wrestle on you, it's going to give him openings to get the takedown. I'm picking Fluffy. I think that pace is going to be too hard to keep up with. I just want to see him.
The pressure wasn't on Hernandez at all, and that should have been the first warning sign. Young fighters with nothing to lose are dangerous, but they're also reckless. Hernandez was riding momentum, climbing fast, and everyone expected him to keep winning. Meanwhile, Strickland was fighting for his reputation, his legacy, everything he'd built as a former champion. When a veteran's back is against the wall, when he has everything to lose, that's when you see what he's really made of.
Oh. It's not a bad bet. I mean, yeah, I don't really see Sean Strickland shooting much on him. Strickland's been fighting with his knees locked out. He has those puppies locked
that
out.
That makes me funny. You're exactly right.
Tall as hell. Hopefully we see
tiptoeing.
Hopefully we see Fluffy pushing the pace on him, making him wrestle, making him get up a lot. But Strickland is a good grappler. And God, I'm fired up for the.
Bilal Mohammed thought he had it all figured out. Called Strickland predictable. Said everyone knew what they were getting. Jabs, kicks, trash talk, rinse and repeat. But predictable doesn't mean ineffective. Sometimes the most dangerous fighters are the ones who do simple things perfectly while you're trying to get fancy. Mohammed predicted that Strickland's straightforward approach would crumble against Hernandez's multifaceted attack. He thought walking forward against a high-level wrestler was suicide. He was about to learn why champions become champions. Even the technical analysts were missing the point. They saw Strickland's locked-out knees and thought it made him vulnerable to takedowns. They wanted Hernandez to push the pace, force the wrestling exchanges, make Strickland work. What they didn't understand is that Strickland wanted those exchanges. He wanted Hernandez to bring the fight to him. Because when you're comfortable in chaos and your opponent is still trying to execute a game plan, you've already won. The MMA guru had the most interesting take of all. He saw this as perfectly set up for Strickland's signature weapons. Hernandez's hunched fighting posture, his tendency to expose his body, the way he moved forward. It was like he was walking into a minefield designed specifically for him. But the guru was still cautious, still hedging his bets because the odds and the experts all favored Hernandez. Sometimes the most obvious answer is the right one, even when everyone's trying to outsmart themselves. So there you have it. Sean Strickland walked into that cage as the underdog, facing a young, hungry fighter that everyone thought would wrestle him into submission. Instead, he delivered a third-round TKO that shut up every expert who thought they knew better. This wasn't just a win. This was a statement that experience, heart, and the will to break your opponent still matter more than stats on a computer screen. And honestly, this is exactly why MMA is the greatest sport on earth. On any given night, everything you think you know can get thrown out the window. So here's my question for you. Drop it in the comments. Do you think the experts learned their lesson, or are they already making the same mistakes with the next young prospect? If this breakdown showed you why the smart money isn't always the right money, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because we're just getting started with the biggest upsets and shocking moments in combat sports. I'll see you in the next one. And speaking of shocking moments, let me tell you about the ripple effects this victory sent through the entire middleweight division. Because what happened after Strickland's TKO wasn't just celebration or disappointment. It was complete chaos in the rankings and a total reshuffling of who gets what opportunities next. The UFC brass had to completely rewrite their plans, and some of the biggest names in the division suddenly found themselves in very different positions than they expected to be in. Robert Whittaker was probably watching this fight with more interest than anyone else, because his entire trajectory just shifted overnight. Before this fight, everyone assumed Hernandez would steamroll through Strickland and position himself for a title eliminator against Whittaker. But now Whittaker's looking at potentially facing a rejuvenated Strickland who just proved he's still a legitimate threat to anyone in the division. And let me tell you something about Robert Whittaker. He's smart enough to know that a motivated Sean Strickland coming off a statement win is a completely different animal than the guy who lost the title. But here's where it gets really interesting. Khamzat Chimaev's team was probably taking notes during this entire fight because they saw something that changes their entire approach to the division. Everyone's been talking about Chimaev as this unstoppable wrestling force who's going to dominate everyone at middleweight. But Strickland just showed a blueprint for how to neutralize elite grappling with superior positioning, better cardio, and the kind of mental toughness that you can't teach in a gym. Chimaev's still dangerous, don't get me wrong, but this fight proved that raw athletic ability isn't everything. And what about Paulo Costa? The guy's been struggling to find his identity in this division, bouncing between weight classes and trying to figure out where he fits. But Strickland's performance just reminded everyone that technique and fight IQ can overcome physical advantages. Costa has all the power in the world, but Strickland just demonstrated that the fighter who can impose their will for 5 rounds is more dangerous than the guy looking for one big moment. That's got to be eating at Costa's team right now. Here's something nobody's talking about, though. This victory doesn't just impact Strickland's immediate future. It completely changes how young prospects are going to approach fighting veterans going forward. For months, maybe years, every up-and-coming middleweight was watching Hernandez as the blueprint for how to fast-track your way to title contention. Beat some solid names, look dominant doing it, and ride that momentum straight to the championship. But Strickland just shattered that entire narrative. Now every young fighter has to ask themselves a harder question. Are they actually ready for the elite level, or are they just beating guys who aren't quite championship material? Because that's exactly what Strickland exposed about Hernandez. All those impressive wins suddenly looked different when you realize they came against fighters who had fundamental holes in their games. It's like being the fastest guy in your neighborhood and then showing up to the Olympics. The competition level just hit different. The psychological impact on Hernandez himself is probably the most devastating part of all this. This wasn't just a loss. This was getting stopped by a guy that everyone told him he should beat. That does things to a fighter's confidence that take years to repair. We've seen it happen to prospects before. They get fast-tracked to elite competition, suffer a brutal reality check, and then spend the next 2 years trying to rebuild their mental game. Some guys come back stronger. Others never fully recover from that kind of ego destruction. But let's talk about what this means for Strickland's legacy, because this is where things get really fascinating. A lot of people wrote him off after losing the title, treating him like he was just another former champion sliding into irrelevance. But this performance reminded everyone why he held that belt in the first place. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't lucky timing. Sean Strickland became champion because he has a very specific set of skills that cause problems for elite fighters, and those skills don't just disappear overnight. The trash talk game is about to get absolutely nuclear too. You think Strickland was confident before? Now he's got fresh ammunition against every single person who picked against him. Every analyst who said his time was over. Every fighter who thought he was an easy target. Every fan who wrote him off as yesterday's news. He's going to be insufferable at press conferences, and honestly, he's earned the right to be. There's nothing more dangerous than a proven fighter, with a chip on his shoulder and recent evidence that he was right all along. And here's what makes this even more interesting from a stylistic standpoint. Strickland didn't just win this fight. He won it in a way that showcased every single one of his strengths while exposing the exact weaknesses that his critics said would get him beaten. His pressure was relentless. His cardio was superior. His striking was sharper and more precise. His takedown defense was exactly as advertised. This wasn't a lucky punch or a fortunate scramble. This was a complete domination by a fighter who understood the assignment better than anyone else in the building. The betting world is going absolutely insane trying to figure out how to price Strickland's next fight. Because what do you do with a guy who just proved that all the analytics and advanced metrics in the world can't account for pure fighting instinct? The oddsmakers are probably looking at this result and questioning everything they thought they knew about how to evaluate matchups. When the fundamentals beat the fancy stats this decisively, it forces everyone to reconsider their entire approach to fight analysis. Speaking of analysis, the film study sessions happening right now in gyms across the world are probably intense beyond belief. Every middleweight contender is breaking down this fight frame by frame, trying to understand what went wrong for Hernandez and what went right for Strickland. But here's the problem with trying to copy what Strickland did. His approach only works if you have his specific combination of attributes. The cardio to maintain that pace. The mental toughness to absorb punishment without breaking. The technical precision to land clean shots while avoiding takedowns. You can't just watch the tape and replicate that. The social media reaction has been absolutely wild too. All those keyboard warriors who were talking about how Strickland was washed up and ready for retirement are now mysteriously quiet. The MMA Twitter experts who were guaranteeing a Hernandez submission victory are deleting tweets and pretending they never doubted the former champion. It's beautiful to watch in the most petty way possible. There's something satisfying about watching people who talk the loudest eat the most humble pie. But beyond all the drama and the aftermath, this fight represents something bigger about MMA as a sport. It's a reminder that styles make fights, that experience matters, and that you can never count out a true competitor until they're completely finished. The sport keeps evolving, with new techniques and training methods and athletic freaks coming through the system. But sometimes the old-school approach of superior fundamentals and unbreakable will still reign supreme. And that brings us to the most important question of all. What's next for Sean Strickland? Because this victory puts him right back in the thick of title contention, but the path forward isn't as clear as you might think. Does he wait for a top 5 opponent to become available? Does he take another fight against a rising contender to stay active? Or does he try to fast-track his way back to a title shot by calling out the biggest names possible? Each option comes with its own risks and rewards, and the decision he makes could determine whether this was just a great moment or the beginning of another championship run.